Picture a nation smaller than Kansas, tucked away on South America's northern coast, a place where the Amazon rainforest meets the Atlantic Ocean. Less than 800,000 souls call it home. That's fewer people than live in San Francisco. Most of the country is still untouched jungle, where jaguars roam and indigenous tribes live as they have for centuries. Yet beneath its turquoise waters, in depths where sunlight never reaches, lies something so valuable, so game-changing, that it sparked an invisible war between the world's most powerful nations. A war fought not with missiles or armies, but with money, influence, and strategic promises. Welcome to Guyana, where oil isn't just transforming an economy, it's rewriting the rules of global power in the Western Hemisphere. And right now, in 2025, three titans are locked in a strategic chess match for control. The United States, protecting its backyard. China, expanding its global reach. India, leveraging its cultural heritage. Each one desperate to claim their piece of this liquid gold. But to understand why this matters, why superpowers are circling this tiny nation like sharks sensing blood, we need to understand what Guyana was and what it's becoming. From colonial outpost to forgotten nation. Let me paint you a picture of old Guyana. For centuries, this was a land that powerful nations conquered but never quite valued. The Dutch came first, then the British, each seeing it as little more than a sugar plantation with a coastline. When independence came in 1966, Guyana inherited an economy built on the backs of sugar workers and rice farmers. The departing colonizers left behind crumbling infrastructure and an economy dependent on raw materials with volatile prices. Georgetown, the capital, still looked like a British colonial town that time forgot. Wooden buildings on stilts, canals instead of storm drains, and dreams bigger than budgets. For decades after independence, Guyana watched its neighbors prosper while it struggled. Educated Guyanese fled to New York, Toronto, and London, creating a brain drain that left the country even poorer. By the 1980s, the economy was in freefall. Sugar prices collapsed. The bauxite mines barely broke even. This was a nation surviving on remittances from its diaspora and aid from whoever would offer it. The only thing that made international headlines was the Jonestown tragedy in 1978, and that wasn't exactly a tourism boost. Guyana was, quite simply, forgotten by the world, the discovery that changed everything. Then came May 2015, a date that will forever divide Guyana's history into before and after. An American oil giant, ExxonMobil, had been quietly drilling in waters 120 miles offshore in an area called the Stabroek Block. Their drill bit punched through rock formations laid down when dinosaurs walked the earth, and what they found was beyond their wildest calculations. We're talking 11 billion barrels of recoverable oil. But here's what makes this special. This isn't heavy, difficult to refine crude like Venezuela's. This is light, sweet crude, the champagne of petroleum, the kind refineries love and pay premium prices for. To put this discovery in perspective, Norway, which built one of the world's wealthiest societies on oil, has about 8 billion barrels in reserves. Mexico, a major oil producer for over a century, has 6 billion. Guyana, a country most people can't locate on a map, suddenly had more high-quality oil than either of them, and the discoveries kept coming. Liza Phase 1, Liza Phase 2, Payara, Yellowtail. Each new discovery added billions more barrels. Oil companies started calling it the play of the decade, the biggest new oil find anywhere on Earth. Fast forward to today and Guyana's oil production has exploded beyond anyone's projections. Over 600,000 barrels flow daily from those floating platforms that look like space stations on the ocean. They're targeting 1.2 million barrels a day. That would make Guyana a bigger oil producer than Qatar or Kazakhstan. For a country of 800,000 people, that means there's theoretically $50,000 in oil revenue per year for every man, woman, and child. That's not growth. That's a complete transformation of human possibility. America's full-court press enter the United States, moving with the precision of a chess grandmaster who's been planning this game for years. See, America has multiple advantages here. ExxonMobil, that's pure American corporate muscle, not only discovered the oil, but operates the entire offshore circus. They've invested over $30 billion and counting. But for Washington, this is about far more than one company's profit margins. Pull up a map of the Western Hemisphere. Guyana sits at a critical junction, where South America meets the Caribbean, where the Atlantic meets the Amazon. More importantly, it shares a border with Venezuela, a nation that's basically become a Russian and Chinese outpost in America's backyard. So what's America doing? They're not being subtle. The U.S. Southern Command has dramatically increased its presence. Military advisors are training Guyana's tiny defense force in everything from coastal patrol to cybersecurity. American warships make friendly visits to Georgetown's harbor with increasing frequency. The Dragon's patient strategy. But China plays a different game entirely. They don't threaten or demand. They build and wait. Beijing's approach is brilliant in its subtlety. While American diplomats talk about democracy and security, Chinese representatives arrive with blueprints and bank accounts. They don't lecture about governance. They offer to build the government buildings. By 2025, Chinese companies have their fingers in every major sector. They're mining bauxite in Linden. They're building shopping malls in Georgetown. They've proposed a massive deep water port at Crab Island that would be the largest between Miami and Rio. A port that could handle container ships or naval vessels. India's heritage advantage. Now here's where geopolitics gets personal. India isn't just another player in this game. For nearly half of Guyana's population, India is the motherland. To understand this connection, we need to go back to the 1830s. When Britain abolished slavery in its colonies, the sugar plantations of British Guyana faced a crisis. Who would work the fields? The answer came from halfway around the world. Between 1838 and 1917, over 240,000 indentured laborers made the treacherous journey from India's villages to Guyana's plantations. New Delhi understands this cultural capital is their ace card. While America talks security and China talks infrastructure, India speaks the language of shared heritage. And it's remarkably effective. India's approach is surgically precise. The Indian government funds 100 scholarships annually for Guyanese students to study medicine and engineering in Delhi and Mumbai. Indian medical teams regularly visit rural Guyana, providing free surgeries and treatments. When Georgetown's main hospital needed an upgrade, India donated an entire cardiac unit. But here's where it gets strategic. India's oil consumption is exploding, projected to hit 7 million barrels per day by 2030. They desperately need stable suppliers outside the volatile Middle East. Guyana offers the perfect combination: quality oil, cultural connections, and geographic distance from global hotspots. Indian companies are already moving. Reliance Industries has proposed building Guyana's first oil refinery, ending the absurd situation where Guyana exports crude but imports gasoline. Indian pharmaceutical companies are setting up factories. Tech companies from Bangalore are establishing Caribbean headquarters in Georgetown. As one Indian diplomat told me, we're not trying to buy Guyana or control it. We're reminding them that prosperity can come from partnership with family. It's soft power at its most sophisticated. Venezuela, the powder keg. Next door. But there's an elephant in the room that everyone's trying to ignore. Venezuela. Here's what you need to understand. Venezuela has never, not for a single day since Guyana's independence, accepted the current border. They claim the entire Essequibo region. That's 2/3 of Guyana's territory, including lands where indigenous peoples have lived for thousands of years, and, crucially, waters where billions of barrels of oil now sit. And here's what makes this terrifying. Venezuela's economy is in ruins. Their oil industry, once the pride of Latin America, can barely function. They watch Guyana pump 600,000 barrels of high-quality crude daily, while their own production struggles to hit 1 million barrels of heavy sulfurous oil. For a desperate regime in Caracas, Guyana's oil fields aren't just tempting, they're salvation. The impossible balancing act. Now put yourself in the shoes of Guyana's leaders. You're sitting on wealth beyond imagination, but you're surrounded by giants who all want to be your best friend for a price. Every decision is a minefield. Accept American military protection? You might wake up to find a U.S. base on your soil and your foreign policy decided in Washington. Take Chinese infrastructure money? You could lose control of the very ports and roads that make your economy function. Embrace Indian partnership? It might not be enough when you need hard power protection. What success or failure means. Let's zoom out and understand what's really at stake here. This isn't just about one small country's future. It's about the architecture of global power in the 21st century. For China, Guyana is about proving their model of development works everywhere. They're essentially saying, forget lectures about democracy and human rights. We'll build your country while the Americans are still debating. Success means adding another jewel to the Belt and Road crown and securing energy resources far from American naval power in the Pacific. Failure means admitting there are still places where Western influence can't be displaced. The next 5 years, critical decisions. The next 5 years will determine Guyana's trajectory for the next 50. By 2030, oil production could reach 2 million barrels per day. That's Kuwait-level production from a country with 1% of Kuwait's population. The decisions made now about how to manage this windfall will echo for generations. Major choices loom. Should Guyana build its own refinery or remain a crude exporter? Should it join OPEC and play oil politics or stay independent? How much military cooperation with America is too much? How much Chinese debt is too dangerous? Can Indian cultural ties translate into concrete benefits? Meanwhile, the world is changing. Electric vehicles are eating into oil demand. Climate policies are tightening. Renewable energy is becoming cheaper every year. Guyana might be the last country to get rich from oil before the world moves on. That makes the timing even more critical. Conclusion: the highest stakes game. In this great game between superpowers, we're watching more than a competition for resources. We're seeing the future of international relations play out in real time. Can a small nation navigate between giants without being crushed? Can newfound wealth be a blessing instead of a curse? Can the Western Hemisphere remain America's backyard when China shops for new front yards? The silent war for Guyana matters because it's a preview of battles to come. As resources become scarcer, as climate change reshapes economies, as power shifts from west to east and back again, more small nations will face Guyana's dilemma. Dance with giants without getting stepped on. Accept help without accepting control. Get rich without losing your soul. Because when superpowers fight over your treasure, sometimes the real question isn't who wins the treasure. It's whether there's anything left to win. The battle for Guyana has only just begun. And how it ends will send a message to every small nation with big resources. Your wealth can be your salvation, or it can be your doom. The choice, if you're strong enough to make it, is yours. But in a world of giants, how many really get to choose?